Aaron Slade has been the behind-the-scenes force for 102.3 FM, KJLH Radio, the only African-American owned station in Los Angeles. Please welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. Now I have to stand up because Tony stood up. Normally I would sit down. The teacher says, I probably would do this. I'm not in front of the camera, I'm not on the mic, so I kind of do everything behind the scenes. Let me start by taking you all the way back to 1965. I know you weren't. Is it on?
Is it on? Can you hear us?
Can you hear me? Oh, here we go. We're on now. Okay. How many of you know KJLH? Okay, wonderful. KJLH, kindness, joy, love, and happiness. We were licensed in 1965. Does anyone know what happened in 1965? Why KJLH was licensed?
The Watts Riot?
The Watts Riot. The frequency of KJLH 102.3 was in existence before 65. But in 65, the FCC realized they needed more diversity and voice. John Lamar Hill petitioned the FCC 43 and renamed it KJLH after him, John Lamar Hill. Kindness, joy, love, and happiness. So from 65 forward, we were African American owned and targeted to the African American community. In 1979, Mr. Hill put the station up for sale, and it was purchased by a musician. Do you all know who owns KJLH now? Stevie Wonder. When Stevie bought the station in 79, he came in and decided, I like the way it sounds, but we need more community involvement. We need more participation of the community. So what he did was he hired a news director. The news director hired a reporter. Now, we've always been a music station, and once it's owned by a musician, you're going to play R&B. Okay, we are going to play music. But he wanted more information. We don't read as much as we should, especially at that time. So we got Carl Nelson, he came out of New York, and Jackie Stevens came out of Chicago and Denver. It's because of Carl Nelson, our news director, and Jackie Stevens, KJLH was recognized with a Peabody in 1992 because of our coverage of the riots. And maybe I would love to take credit for it. I must say, my background is Xerox. I was in corporate America for a decade or so before I came into radio. And at that time, they were teaching me as fast as I was learning, they were teaching me. And what I saw happening was there was a change in the mood. I wasn't here in 65, so I don't know how long it lasted, but there was a plight, economic plight in South Central. The police were, I don't know, they just had such a bad attitude every time they came to South Central. Of course, we know this was systemic. I mean, it had been around a long time. But when I think when Latasha was killed by the Korean grocer, the whole attitude started to change, at least from KJLH's perspective. Our listeners started to change. They were more angry, more volatile. They didn't understand. Right before the riots, we came up with a program called Front Page. Front Page is our public affairs program because we wanted to continue to play music, but we also wanted to delve a little bit deeper into the issues that were affecting the community. So at 4:30 to 6 a.m., we do our public affairs program. This was Carl Nelson's baby. What we decided to do after Latasha was killed was begin to follow. We started sending Jackie out. She went to the courtroom, and she heard when the Korean grocery store owner got 5 years probation for shooting a 15-year-old in the back of the head. Let's just say our listeners were almost rabid. They couldn't understand it. They couldn't understand it because we did see the video. Now, this is before iPhones and all the technology, but we did see the security footage. And when you saw her turn to walk and she dropped, you couldn't understand it, and nor could we explain it. So what we tried to do is get everybody just to talk about it. And our goal was to diffuse it and try to get some constructive action. They went and marched and tried to get some audience with the judge. Nothing happened. She was firm in her decision. The woman was not a threat to this community, a threat to society. This was just something that happened. Now, I don't know the time frame. I don't know if it's 6 months later. Now remember, we're following the trial of Rodney King. That video was also released. I had Jackie Stevens in the courtroom for that. And she would come back and do 5 news updates a day, telling us what's happening. I think we're covering it well. I think we're doing our job, right? We're journalists, we're getting the information, we're bringing the live actualities, putting them on air. I wasn't listening closely enough, but on front page on our public affairs program, people were calling in and they were venting. And the tone started to change. Now, I never realized that they were going to be explosive. I still have my journalism hat on. Okay, we're covering the trial, we're doing our news updates. And then all of a sudden, when the police officers, let me back up. We did get 2 of the police officers to come in and do our Saturday, Jackie's show on Saturday called LA Speaks Out. We got 2 police officers to come in, talk about what was happening, and then we had to get security to get them out, because once people realized they were on air, they just flocked to the station. We were on Crenshaw at that time. We continued to try to do balanced presentation, but our audience just wasn't having it. Our listeners were not having it. We got a warning maybe 2 or 3 hours before the decision came down, saying it was going to come down that afternoon to be prepared. Of course, Jackie was in the courtroom. She was ready. I wrote an editorial. I'm going to go on there. Barry White was in the studio at the time. It's music. You guys don't even know who Barry White is, do you? Well, Barry White is from South Central, and he would come by the station all the time. So it was normal music, normal day. I wrote my editorial. We were waiting for the verdict to come down. Jackie went on air. I went on air with my editorial. The owner came down. We're all kind of waiting to get feedback. We're still playing music, but we're doing our news updates, the editorial, the verdict. Now, the powers that be went to first day of meeting. The mayor, I won't say the old guard. No, that's me. I have become the old guard. They were at first day of meeting. But everybody else was kind of tuning in to see what KJLH was going to do. Now remember, we're giving updates, and we're trying to stay as factual as we can the entire time. So all of a sudden, people just started calling. Slowly but surely, we got away from the music. We stopped playing music. We weren't playing Barry White's song anymore. And then I said, okay, Carl, go out and get some actualities. I'm going to hear what the people are saying about the verdict. Of course, they go to Florence and Normandy. They come hightailing it back, saying, I think I saw somebody get killed. I'm like, no, come on, you didn't, I'm in the building, I don't know what's going on. I'm in the building, I don't know, but you didn't get my actuality. And they're like, no. I said, well, what happened? And they saw what they shared with me was President Jim getting pulled out of the truck. I'm like, well, what happened? What happened? Did you, well, we were in KJLH's vehicle and we just got out of there. Okay, you didn't help. Did anyone help? And then they said, well, as we were driving, we did see another guy down, and we saw a minister telling him to stop it, and he put his Bible up. I said, well, where was that? Did you get any? No. Well, my guys ran back to the studio. Embarrassing, but it's true. But what we did do well was we took the calls, and we went away from music, and for the next 3 days and 3 nights, we let them talk. And we got all kinds of conversation, yelling, screaming, crying. And the city is starting to burn. Now I'm getting nervous. So Barry White, I go up to him and I say, sir, I can't protect you. I can't guarantee your safety, I think you should go home, get out of here. And he's like, I'm from the hood, baby. That's my favorite way. And I know, not too good. But anyway, so he stayed, and before I knew it, everybody was coming saying, what can we do to help? What can we do to help? Johnny Cochran. I said, what is this martial law? What does that mean? So all of my community experts came. I'd like to say we called them out, and they came and shared their expertise. It was like a gravitational pull. Johnny came and was explaining, and then the Cochran firm, some of their attorneys came, so we could stay on top. We were trying to let them vent, but give them constructive information. I sent my staff home, those that would go, the air personalities, and you stayed. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, I remember I'm manning the phone because people are calling us. A neighbor called to say that a nursing home was on fire. And I'm like, why did you call my KJLH? Hang up and call the fire department. And they're like, we couldn't get through, we knew we'd call you, you'd do something. So we went on air. And do you know, neighbors came out of their homes, people came and I'm getting emotional. They got the people out of the nursing home. They couldn't walk, they were invalids. They got them out and took them to the streets, and they were safe. That's the best of broadcasting. They called us instead of calling the fire department, and we put a call out for help. And the people came and helped. Radio can make a difference. I know it's old-fashioned, it's terrestrial medium, and now we have all the new platforms. The thing I still love about radio, if you want to call it the original social medium, is that it's an exchange. We're not always blasting music to you. We can have a dialogue, and we can spread the word. The thing that makes me nervous is when I see how, I'm going to get political on you, I'll see with social media just blast one opinion out, and you don't have a different opinion to counter it, or it's one-to-one. There's no dialogue, there's no communication exchange. It's just blasting one to the other. And we've made such progress. And my concern is that we will go backwards instead of going forward. I don't know if you really get what I'm saying. We have to stay engaged, and we must communicate. One other story I'll share with you is, yes, the African American community did rebel against the Korean community, but it was seething from the 15-year-old being killed. Among other perceived slights, culturally, the exchange of money, when many times they put the money in the tray and put the tray over. It was not, and we didn't learn all this until we got with Radio Korea. Carl Nelson, idea. We did 3 simulcasts with Radio Korea after the riots, trying to get some cultural exchange, because we thought it was going to happen again. The tensions were just so high. Now, it wasn't one of the brighter ideas because the Korean my audience couldn't understand Korean, so we had to have the translator. It lost a little bit in translation, but people didn't tune out. They stayed for the translation because they were trying to really understand. So a lot of the perceived slights were cultural differences. And just like we bring our bias, they have their bias. But when you realize at the end of the day, we're all human and we all want the same thing. But when we shut ourselves off and build walls, oh, here I go with my metaphor. Sorry. We shelter and we hover in our own biases. And to break through, we must communicate. Even when we're in disagreement, we must communicate, we must listen, as Tony said. Because you'll find some mutual understanding. You'll find some mutual agreement. And then the next time, I don't know when the next time will be. It looks like Ferguson had their next time. But LA has come a long way, but there are still tensions. And I think as long as we can keep the communication open and conversations like this, because you can make the difference. I'm old guard, you're new guard. So keep the communication line open, and let's not always leap to the worst case scenario. There have been some good changes with LAPD. It reflects more of the communities that they serve, thankfully. They have civilian oversight. Wonderful. A lot of the laws on the books have not changed yet, so we still have work to do. And economically, we're still very depressed, and all businesses that have been burned down during the riots have not been rebuilt, and it's 25 years later. So there's still work to do, but we're going to pass the torch to you. Are you ready for it? Okay, because there's no time. You got more energy. Thank you very much.